Habits. If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good morning. It is a beautiful Saturday morning here in the Chicago area. I am your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining the HHH Racing Podcast, Saratoga Today, for Saturday, September 2nd. Believe it or not, the very last Saturday of the meet at Saratoga, and they are finally getting absolutely beautiful sunny weather there in Saratoga. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Smash that like button. We'd really appreciate that. And also hit the notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. Of course, you can listen to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We have fantastic power picks. Look below the video player. And boy, do I have some strong opinions today. Hopefully they're going to be good, but I have some very strong opinions today. I tipped out one of them on the Bettin' and Boozin' show this past Wednesday as I made a bit of a guest appearance. Hope maybe you saw that. We'll talk about that in a minute. We've got a great website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Today, guess what? It's just me. I started this podcast in late January of 2021, and I did over 100 shows just on my own, and my wonderful co-hosts, Pete, Paul, Kyle, Charlie, Patrick, Noah, giving them a little break this morning. They've been working very hard this summer throughout the Saratoga meet, especially. And I think I can handle this on my own this morning. And the great thing about doing your own show is when you have strong opinions, hey, I've got no one in person to push back on me. But you know what? I've got you, our wonderful viewers and listeners, to push back. So please make sure you comment in the live chat to be very active. We're going to be talking about the late pick 5 today at Saratoga. And I have some extremely strong and hopefully good opinions. So thank you very much for joining us. Before we start, very quickly, I've got a few items I want to mention. And before I do that, let's go to the comment section. Bill Kelly is here. Beautiful day at the spa. Let's close the spa season with some winners. And Bill, perhaps you will see Patrick Kunzel, our wonderful co-host from Bettin' and Boozin'. He is also there at Saratoga live, taking the great horse racing action on closing weekend. Terry Frank from St. Louis is here. Terry, how you doing, buddy? Met Terry at the Viper Club for Jockey Karaoke about a month back at Saratoga. Terry, how you doing? Katie is here. We've got Jimmy is here. Good morning. Mike Monroe is here. Matt Miller, BC champ, great friend. Looking forward to a fun day. I am too. I'll be spending some time with Matt today, betting, maybe a little boozing, talking horses, playing some contests, having a lot of fun. Matt, as you know, I've got some strong opinions, some which I'll be talking about today here on the show. Few quick items before we get into the late pick 5 at Saratoga, and also I'll mention the early stake races as well. Big news, and this is in the this is in DRF, so you could go on to Daily Racing Forum. You can hear about it. So news coming out about New York Thunder, who of course tragically passed away last week. He had some legal, I want to make this clear, legal injections into his joint several times over the last past months. He was also on the vet list a bunch of times. He had some injections, again, legal injections, to take care of some joint inflammation and pain 14 days before his huge win in the Amsterdam, where he ran off the screen. And he also had some injections 14 days before his tragedy in the H. Allen Jerkins. HISA insists that trainers make sure they do not run horses within a 14-day period. Again, everything was done legally. However, obviously, New York Thunder had some issues physically, and you would have to at least guess or speculate that that had something to do with the tragedy last weekend. So I just want to point that out. Again, go to the Daily Racing Forum, or you can just Google it. But New York Thunder was on the vet list and had some joint injections, and I'm sure there'll be much talk about that. On the positive note, there's two horses on the work tab that just came back that I'm excited to see. Up to the Mark, a very talented turf horse for Todd Pletcher, the best distance turf horse in this country by far, had been injured, is back on the work tab, and Pletcher is planning on running this one in the big mile turf race at Keeneland next month, which is a win and you're in. So hopefully Up to the Mark will be running in about a month and could come back as big and strong as ever. And another horse, this one for Brad Cox. Do you remember this horse? First Mission, a horse that I absolutely loved in the Preakness until he got scratched 48 hours before. He had some hind end issues. He's back on the work tab. So hopefully First Mission, a 3-year-old, will come back bigger and stronger than ever. Who knows what the plan is for First Mission, but I did want to mention that. Also, we have Simon O'Neill is here from Europe. Simon, hello. How are you? Good morning. Well, actually, good afternoon to you. Paul Halloran. I don't know. I got to be very honest. We were scheduled to have Charlie and Kyle on. Charlie did text me. He's got some things going on at school this morning. The Ohio State University is playing football today, a home game. So Charlie's a little busy this morning. Kyle Roscoe. Kyle is not sure, actually, but I'm sure he's fine. No big deal whatsoever. Happy to go solo this morning, and Paul give you and Pete a little bit of a break. Although if you guys would like to come on, you're more than welcome. You do have the link. Obviously, no obligations whatsoever. Let's see here. Charles B. mentions that love the transparency of HISA. Yes, they need to be more transparent, though. Too bad the bettors did not know the horse was sound or not sound. I'm not saying he was not sound or lame. He passed all the vet exams. I'm just saying, Charles, that it's been now documented that he did have some issues, but he was cleared to run. You can, decide for yourself any judgments there. But again, that obviously had something to do with his race a week ago. All right. The other thing I want to mention, and I touted this out at Ben and Boozin on Wednesday. So check out the Wednesday show. I think episode 38, I'd like to say. But this past week's Ben and Boozin show, I love a horse running at Kentucky Downs today in race 10. It's the number 8 Churchtown. He's 4-1 morning line. I'm not tipping out some kind of 20-1 shot, but Annapolis is in that race. I'm totally against Annapolis today. I love Churchtown, hoping to get like 3-1 at Kentucky Downs today, race 8. And if I'm wrong, hey, so be it. It's horse racing. It's called gambling for a reason, but I will be placing a big win bet on Churchtown for sure today at Kentucky Downs, race 10. I don't have the time of that race, but it's obviously later this afternoon. And let's see. Phil Conti's here. Yes, he had issues. We got Jimmy Tuez loves Kentucky Downs. And look who's here. Wow. All right, so I don't know if he's going to be here for the whole show, but knowing this guy, I'm 99% positive he's handicapped the late pick 5, and he's got nothing else to do. So let's bring him on. This was a surprise, but I love it. From the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Saratoga Special, subbing in, I got a substitute teacher today. Paul's going to join us. Paul, how you doing?
I'm off the also eligible list like Dracone.
There we go. Paul, you going to join us for the whole show?
I think I should be good. We'll see what happens
Wow.
here. By the way, on an Ohio State game day, Charlie Freeman was 3-5 to not be here.
That's a good point, but
Okay.
That's okay. You're home, right, Paul?
Yes, unfortunately, I am
Okay.
home. I am better.
Okay,
I guess
good.
I am coming off a minor COVID bout. But
Sorry
actually,
to hear
this is the best I've felt. I've the usual. I felt lousy early in the week, starting with Monday night, though I soldiered through. And
well, we're glad you're off the vet list. What you got behind you there? Like in the picture frame, there's a sign or something over your shoulder?
I'm outside. This is we're having some work done on the put an addition.
All right. Well, the Paul Halloran household. I expected a 5-story mansion, but that looks lovely though. There, a lot of trees around. Looks wonderful.
Oh, I should bring this around the front at some point to show you my new addition. I'm very proud of.
We'll do that. Ralph Conti, I agree with you. Ralph said now we can get some winners with Paul coming on the show. Ouch on my part, but in Paul's case, totally agree. Paul, obviously you'll give us picks as we go along, and I'll put them up. I'm assuming you have top 3 for each race, so we'll go ahead and put them up in the banners. Before we get to the race, let's just do this before we talk about the race. I think that'd be easier for me from a tech standpoint. So let me erase this. And Paul, who do you have in race 8?
Race 8 is the first leg of the
late pick 5.
Interesting. I am going to come back to Thin White Duke in race 8, Howard.
Do you just give me the top 3 numbers, Paul, and then we'll handicap after that?
Sure. 3, 4, 5.
Hey, very simple. Before we get into that, I just want to mention, Paul, for the viewers, and I'll let you sort of formulate your top 3 picks if you haven't done that also. There are some races earlier in the early pick 5 we're not going to talk about. I'm glad we're not talking about the early pick 5, Paul. As much as I love Saratoga and I love stake races, when's the last time you saw on a Saturday at Saratoga, Paul, race fields of 4, 5, and 6 in the early pick 5? It's just, and these are not like off the turf nonsense. I don't even want to get into it. But anyway, the Flower Bowl, I actually think Amazing Grace can turn the tables on McCulloch today. There was some trouble trip for Amazing Grace. We were there. I was there that weekend. So there's a lot of horses coming back today that I have strong opinions. I like Amazing Grace a bit in the Flower Bowl. And the Prioress, the number 5 horse, and I'm drawing a blank. It's a small field. I really like the 5 horse on the outside in the Prioress. That is race 5. So just want to mention those 2 races before we get into the later races. Last thing, race 7, which is out of the pick 5, is a loaded baby race. And I love a horse in that race. Should I tell them, Paul, or should I just tell them if you have the power picks, you get to see it? If you don't, too bad.
No, it's closing weekend. Be a sport.
All right. I'm just kidding. The number 9, Dive Bomber in race 7, outside of the late pick 5, had a little bit of trouble first time out, is by Omaha Beach, Paul, which is a red hot first crop sire, out of a Blame mare. Distance will love the extra furlong. Had trouble last time. And Paul, as you know, because I sent them to you and everyone on the show, 3 straight B+ workouts for Dive Bomber with blinkers on. And Paul, as you know this, yesterday there was a horse that ran sort of off the screen at Saratoga named Locked in race 5. Locked beat a horse called Drum Roll Please, who ran very well. And Dive Bomber, Paul, outworked Drum Roll Please several times. So Dive Bomber in race 7, the 9, who's 7-2, Paul, I'm sending it in. I think that horse has a huge shot at maybe, 5-2-ish. So there you go. Let's go to race 8, Paul. I'm going to bring it up on the screen right now, and we'll jump right in here to the late pick 5 today at Saratoga. Let me take the banner, the banner off the screen that is scrolling, and I will show the picks for myself and my surprise co-host today, Paul Halloran. Race 8, it's the Harvey Pack, and Paul, if we had time, we could extol the virtues of a Harvey Pack. Just an unbelievable personality in horse racing, who unfortunately passed away, I believe, a few years ago. But it's the Harvey Pack Stakes. It's on the turf for older males, 150,000, 5.5 furlongs. I do not have scratches in front of me, Paul. I know they came out, but it was very hard for me to read what Andy Sterling sent out. So if you or the viewers can help me out with that, as we just go race by, we'll just do it race by race, Paul, and make it easier.
Just the MTOs in this race.
Okay, just the MTOs. You see on the screen, the Moorline favorite is number 4, Big Invasion for Clement and Rosario. You're going with Thin White Duke, who, by the way, is co-owned by Steve Christ, for people that know Steve Christ. Is that why? Is this a journalism angle, Paul?
Well, and Steve, I went to a few seminars at the old, it's still there, in the backyard at Ciro's with Steve Christ and Harvey Pack.
Oh,
have to mention Harvey Pack. So
I so wish I had a chance to see those. I was old enough for
that.
Oh,
boy. Ciro's, and then actually in the carousel where the 4-Star Dave is now, Howard, when that was the old carousel,
Yeah.
They were in there at one point. So I'm dating myself, but I'm old. Um, yeah, this horse, obviously Big Invasion enjoys a huge class advantage in this race. Did not run well at all in Ascot, but that's no crime. Um, ran very well in the Jaipur, ran not well at all in the turf sprint when we were there at Churchill. Of course, that was the day that you weren't going to win that race coming from 10th. I think Thin White Duke has a price shot here. The horse does run well at Saratoga, 6 out of 8 in the money. Does need pace to run into and will have to get the jump on Big Invasion, who obviously has a huge turn of foot. But, if Big Invasion's going to be even money and Thin White Duke's going to be 5 or 6 to 1, I'm going to try for a price play here.
Paul, I have some intel. And if people watch this show, you get a lot of strong opinions, and once in a while you get some intel. Paul, Big Invasion's had some little foot issues, and this is part of the reason why he's been off. He's only had one work since he's come back, and the connections, Paul, are just hoping that he's just such a freaky good talent that he can just win on talent alone. I'm dubious of this horse today. Based on what I've heard, I'm not saying he can't win. I want to make it very clear to everyone listening and watching. He's sound. He's 100% fit. Or I shouldn't say he's 100% fit, but he's healthy. This is not an issue of, worried that he's going to get injured or something. But he is not 100% cranked up for this race, Paul. And maybe he's just that good, but I'm against this horse today. I'm using him, obviously, but I'm against him. So maybe that intel changes your mind or not. I don't know. But if you like Thin White Duke, that probably helps your opinion. I think Our Shot is going to win this race, Paul. And I love the fact that Our Shot has an outside post. I think he might be better going 5, but I don't see a problem with 5.5 in a small field. He'll break. He'll look to his left, Paul, and see what's going on. There's not a ton of early speed in here. I think Our Shot is extremely logical, probably as the second choice in this race.
Yeah, and I have him on my top 3. I agree. I think so. We're thinking alike, and at least trying to beat the favorite. Now
Yes.
That's always a 2-part equation. I'm usually pretty good at the first part, but the second part is, oddly enough, you do have to have the right horse in order for them to pay you.
That is true.
That's you got to read the fine print on that. But
the other horse I want to bring up, well, just very quickly, we're not usually don't want to talk about every horse, but I do want to talk about Mr. Is a horse that actually I've talked about on this show, and I've bet. Paul, he was going well. Jason Barkley claimed him off of a real nice win 2 back. He had an A-, which you almost never see on the DF workout report. It's an A- workout report, Paul, before the August 5th race. I am guessing he just hated the wet turf. That is my guess. He's got IRAD on. He's got the rail. There are some question marks in this race. I am not tossing out Mr. Out of my play here. I think Mr. is actually a bit interesting if he fires his best shot, Paul. So I just want to mention that as well. Thin White Duke, they all have a shot. The number 2 is coming off a layoff and might not be ready. Dancing Buck in New York bred. So I'm guessing he's not going to be fully ready here for Nichelle Nevin, who actually can win off the layoff and is 13% with a 180-plus day layoff in the last 5 years. So it's not like she can't do it, Paul, but this is a long layoff and not an easy spot for Dancing Buck.
And Howard, Mr. We rarely in the U.S. run on turf labeled soft.
Yes.
Right? That's about as bad as it gets. And that was...
It was bad that day. Remember, that was when... I'm drawing a blank. The Caravel ran and didn't fire at all that race. Remember that race?
It was the day before the Whitney, I believe.
Yes.
Is that right, Howard?
August 5th.
No, it was the day after. It was the day.
That was Whitney Day.
Yes. So
that was actually Whitney Day.
And that was obviously a case of that race would have been off the turf had it not been a stakes race.
Yeah.
So I think that's I like your thinking there. Again, another one that looks like he's going to be coming from behind, although has some running lines where he's been on or near the lead. So IRAD on board certainly helps.
Yep. Michael Austin mentioned, let's see. Oh, Jimmy mentioned Big Invasion's going to love Sanita. I actually agree with that a lot, Jimmy. I don't know if Big Invasion is best going 5. He might be better a little bit longer, but that's a good point, Jim. This feels like a prep. I mean, he can win on pure talent alone, but the Quants are no dum-dums, Paul. This horse has a big shot in the Breeders' Cup Sprint in, 2 months here, going 5 furlongs. So that's a good point by Jimmy as well. All right, let me go ahead and move on to the next race, Paul. The next race, I also have a strong opinion of, and I want to tell everyone about it. Hopefully I'll be correct. Paul, who are you going in with in race 9, a very tough New York allowance race?
Race 9, I have, I'm coming back with Ravelli. I have 10, 3, 12.
Okay. I think you're going to wow, Paul, this is a wide open field and a tough race. We are thinking quite a bit alike, sir. There they are in the bottom of the screen. We both have the 3 and the 12 in the mix, and I've got the 12 on top, and some people might know why if you look at the PPs, but we'll talk about it, Paul. Let's go to race 9. Tough allowance race, huge field. Are there any scratches, Paul?
I believe not. Hold on. Race 9 is number 7 only.
Fancy Pants, Juliana, huge price for Donk. Okay, non-factor. You got a field of, let's see, it's going to be 12 then because of the scratch. And the Moorline favorite here is, it's on the screen now. Good. The Moorline favorite is the number 10, Richie's Princess, breaking the 11 hole for Ravelli and Irad. You already mentioned. We touted this horse. We talked about this horse last time, Paul, because this was an extremely well-meant first-time starter for Ravelli, who is known to have first-time starters cranked up and ready. This horse absolutely flew out of the gate, ran well, was a little bit goofy in the stretch. I don't say goofy, but was a little bit wide in the stretch and was tiring, but ran very well. And you're just going right back to her, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of betting a horse first time against winners as the favorite, so that's a drawback. But I think this is a competitive field. But among the winners, so to speak, the horse, and most of them have won. I think he's the only one moving up off of maiden. I don't see anyone. I liked this horse a lot last time. Ravelli has great numbers off a win, so that's no. In my mind, I like that. Irad stays, put up a very competitive buyer in his first start, a 79.
I'm going to show the stretch run here, Paul. Obviously, she's in front. She did get the drifts a little bit. Some people thought there should have been an inquiry. If you remember this race, I don't think there should have been. But she's going to have to run really well, and there's a ton of speed in this race. This, to me, is actually tougher than her first race for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I attribute some of that. I mean, that's first-time starter greenness,
Sure.
Running all alone. I think she'll be fine off that. She did hold off. Once Irad got her straightened out, she ran again. So, yeah, again, I'm not loving having the favorite first time against winners, but I also wouldn't be convinced this horse has to be on the lead to win.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Well, by Leoban, I think in the way she responded after that little drift last time, and we don't know if that was a drift or if it was Irad subconsciously being Irad. So I guess
it was a drift. Come on, Paul, we know better. Come on, definitely a drift. No, we don't know. That is for damn sure. Paul, when I looked at this race. And both of us are very much handicap on pace, and we try to get race flow. And I think probably of everyone on the show, I probably look at that more for better or for worse. There's so much early speed in this race, Paul. And there's like 4 or 5 horses that feel like need the lead types. And it just feels like this race has to collapse. I mean, I don't know if it will, but it feels that way. And in that vein, I'm going with a horse. Matt Miller, are you listening? Are you ready? Big Bean Christine. And Matt Miller and I have some history with this horse. I'm not going to get into all the details, but we cashed very nicely on her 2 back on March 11th, which actually, Paul, happened to be NHC weekend. We liked her that day. She won at 4.3 to 1. Now, let me just say a few things. Ray Handel's one of my trainers for a bunch of horses I own. I know this horse pretty well. I've seen her in the shed row a bunch of times. I'll just say a few quick things. 7 furlongs is too far for her. She doesn't want to go that far, number one, Paul. And number two, she needed that last race. She does not have any work since her last race. And I have to be honest, I'm not exactly sure why she doesn't have any published works. But all I can tell you is the connections believe Big Bean Christine is ready, Paul. You've got her third. And if I'm looking for a closer, she's not like a deep closer, but she can pass horses. I don't really mind the outside post, although she could be wide here. I just think she's absolutely fascinating because someone's got to pass someone in the stretch. And this one looks like one of the few that can. And she's second off the layoff where Ray is very good in that stat. Ray Handel is 22% second off this kind of layoff, Paul. Big Bean Christine, boom, drop the mic, 8-1-ish. What do you think, Paul?
I like it. I agree with you about the post. You like it. You're less bothered being that far out in 7 furlongs than 6. But, you talked about the speed. I think Dylan Davis is riding well. He's approaching the 20 win mark at the meet. This horse ran with two of the horses last time, and as you mentioned, clearly needed a race off what was in exactly a 5-month layoff. So I like your thinking here.
Matt wouldn't mind me saying it was almost a surreal, out of body emotional experience for Matt when Big Green Bean Christine won at Vegas. If he wants to put more in the chat, he can, but he's mentioned on there how he actually had to walk out of the room for good reasons because it was that awesome when Big Bean Christine won. We both have the 3 real quick. I know we're going on a little bit longer, but that's okay. Number 3, we both like a little bit also. Missing Fortune, who has a run over the track. Kybir Koa is very capable jockey, and I don't think this one has to have the lead. Might just sit a garden trip at another big price, 8-1, Paul.
Yeah, you got to be careful with the Finger Lake shippers, and this horse took money last time.
Sure did.
Took serious money last time and ran well. I mean, that was no fluke in that race. Ran a very competitive race, and no reason why. Certainly a duplication of that puts her right in the picture. So, you're going to get a bigger price than you probably should with the Finger Lakes connections coming in.
Totally agree. Let's move on to race 10. Race 10 is a nice, salty allowance race for the turfers. Let me go ahead and take the banner off the screen. Again, Paul Halloran is literally off the vet list, off the AE list, and joining us sort of last second.
I'm on all lists.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. But he's not main track only. He goes both ways. Well, actually, I better be careful the way I say that these days. Anyway, Paul, we got your top 3, Paul. Sorry, too much caffeine this morning, I think.
Well, I got to, full disclosure, Howard, I go by if you have a horse in, you pick them. So my Dracone, who I own a very, very, very small piece of, drew in off the also eligible list, Howard. In this race, you can scratch the 11 out of the main body and the other AE, the 14, and then the 2 MTOs.
So the 11 is out, you said?
Correct.
That's actually sort of a big scratch because this horse had no chance, but was going to show a lot of speed. So that's interesting to know. And then the Dracone's in, but the MTOs are out. Is Al's Rocket in the 14? No scratch. I see. Okay.
He is out. Yeah.
All right. So who are you going with, Paul?
I'm going with my guy, Dracone, of course.
Right.
And I got to tell you,
underneath, Paul, who do you got in the top 3 though?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have. Where am I?
He's so excited with Dracone, he can't even. No one else is running in this race, according to Paul.
I have 8-6.
13-8-6, correct?
Correct.
Hey, we are again thinking very much alike, Paul, because boom, there's our picks on the bottom of the screen. I'm going 8-6-5. Although I didn't know Dracone was in the race. So you know what, Paul? You know what? Out of kinship. Out of friendship, I'll put your 13 in third. How's that? Does that make you feel a little better? We'll put your 13 in third.
Very likely could run there.
Talk about Dracone, who's not impossible here and is in really good form.
Well, he really is. So he's a turf horse who had to be, as we know, no turf racing in New York after December. So Was sent to Diodoro to go down to Texas. Ran 3, very good races at Sam Houston. Improved each time. A win in 2 seconds. Obviously got some confidence back. Came back and won on Memorial Day weekend at Belmont. That was a big day around here. My wife's Cannon Fire won on the same card.
Yes.
Came back and ran really well in that second at Belmont,
Yes.
closing very well.
Yeah, scared the
And I
crap
gotta
out of
tell
me
you,
because I had the horse on top, and you almost came over the top and beat me. I had fair dinkum in that race.
yeah, he ran
Or
that was
praise, excuse
a
me, too
praise,
bad.
yeah.
Anyway,
And I gotta tell you, he ran better than the running lines look last time. It was a typical turf race, Howard. First of all, the yielding was not something he's necessarily interested in. That's number one. Number two, as a lot of turf races go, you can see he was 6th. He was a length and a half off the winner. So it was one of those finishes. I think he ran better than it looks. An 85 buyer is, as I texted you earlier. That's like the Cole 4th highest buyer of all these horses. So
yeah.
if he goes up off of that a little bit or even stays there, I think he's competitive. And yeah, we'll see what happens. He really, if you look at it, he ran a bad race up here on dirt last year. Other than that, at least if you look at the 12 lines on the DRF page, they're all pretty competitive.
Yes. Tough post, tough field, but can be a
Tough post.
factor.
Very
And
good point by you. Tough post. Although, let me say this. I did a little research. Excuse me. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did a little research for Mike Piazza. On the inner turf over the last 5 years, statistically, the 12 is actually better than the 9, 10, and 11, for whatever that's worth.
really,
Yes.
that sounds
Small
strange.
sample. By the way, they don't
Okay.
run that many 12-horse fields that's at a mile. Not at the inner turf at a mile. The 12 is better than the 9, 10, 11. Again, small sample. It's like 15% wins, but only out of like 13 races.
Okay.
So,
And this is a mile. This is a mile. This one, or is it mile 16th?
this is a mile on the inner.
Okay. Internal
Okay.
capital.
Yes.
This horse, Paul, got a ridiculous trip last time. I remember being against this horse last time because of the layoff situation, but I just want to show the first turn. This is a gray horse for Chad. This is the other Chad. How many times have we heard this before? This is the other, supposedly less likely winning Chad. Internal capital is the 2 in this race last time in Monmouth. And Paul, he breaks just fine. There's no worries there. But what you're going to see, there is a lot of just a big old mess in the first turn. There's a horse in front of him that checked very badly, and it caused like a chain reaction. And this whole race was just a flat out mess. But watch the number 2, Internal Capital, the gray. He's fine here. And then you see that horse in front of him checks, but it's going to happen again with the same horse. And he steadies out of there really bad. And you know what I want to do? I don't usually do this on the show, but I actually think it'd be better if we show the head on here. Let me see if the head on is a little bit better for us. Again, watch the 2 carefully if you can see it. He's right here. I'll let it run again. I'll just talk through. He steadies again on the backstretch, Paul. He was in a little bit tight. He ran okay through the stretch, like not great. You see this horse in the yellow cap right here is very rank. And you'll see a little better here where he's in between and he like really got, it's a little bit hard to tell, but he got shuffled back. It was really weird. It was bad. And then he had another bad shuffle. Anyway, Internal Capital had trouble last time, Paul, and he was looking to be a real nice horse last year as a late developing 3-year-old, has buyers that fit. It's Castellano. I got no issues there. He's got to get the right trip. It's a big field. I like Internal Capital, Paul, even maybe a little more than I'm Very Busy, who obviously can win also and is working very well with blinkers on. Paul, I just want to mention that for the viewers. The number 6, I'm Very Busy, has improved works with blinkers on. To me, it's Chad or Chad. Maybe Dracone can get in there.
And I just heard out, just an FYI, Santana will be on Dracone because Caramouche was also named on a horse in the body of the race, and he will ride the horse that was not on the also eligible list. So
Okay, so Carmouche is on. Let's see here. Who
he's
is
on
he
a
on?
4, I think.
There is some speed in here. You got Fredo, and yeah, he's so Ruse, who I mean, he's going to lead. This horse is dangerous if he gets loose ball. I don't know if he will, but the fact that the 11 is out, the only real speed in the race now is the 2 and the 4. So I'm not saying I'm going to change my picks, but that does, unless So High is sent hard, that does change my picks a little bit. The Land Biscuit's also in the race, but that was planned. I don't know. I think you had to move up the 4 a little bit now because there's less speed. I still don't know if he can get the job done. I want to quickly mention the 5. We'll move on, Paul. Bad to the Bones is going back to turf for Mott and actually has run okay on the turf and is a much better 4-year-old and has some turf breeding and is working well. I don't think the 5 can win. I just want to mention Bad to the Bones. I think is going to outrun his odds today in this race. Paul, let's go to the big one of the late pick 5. And let me take this off the screen. Who do you have, Paul, in the grade, I think 2, isn't it? Grade 2 win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic, Saratoga, grade 1, Saratoga Jockey Club Gold Cup. Who do you have in this race, Paul?
I have 814.
814. Okay, here are our picks. We are both going against Proxy. And Paul is going with the horse I've got second, a horse that I've got a history with that I can't wait to talk about. Paul, I love your pick. Love your pick. It's not my top pick, but I absolutely love your pick. I think this horse is fascinating. So let's get to it. Like I said, grade 1, Jockey Club Gold Cup, about 6:18 local time, $1 million, mile and a quarter, field of 8, morning line favorites Rally and Roll, the 4. Proxy will be the other obvious choice. You're going Bright Future, Pletcher, Castellano. There's that combination again. Same combination as Internal Capital. 6-1 morning line. He ran great last time, and I think this horse is absolutely fascinating, somewhere near the lead in this big grade 1. Paul.
Yeah, I think there's 2 horses you have to beat if in the race. You got to beat the 1 and 4. Okay. I think Rattle and Roll is very consistent, better than I thought he was. Really hasn't done much wrong other than the fairgrounds race. Very, 5 consecutive triple digit buyers. I don't have any real problem with that horse. I'm not dying to bet this horse as a favorite in a grade 1 race. Proxy is an interesting horse who I've been on a lot, and it drives me nuts because, and I've said this on the show. If you look at the running lines, the 2 times, and we talked about this, I think, with Kevin Kilroy once. The
Yes.
2 times that they have put this horse anywhere near the lead, he's won. So therefore, what do they do the rest of the times? Get him hopelessly far behind so that he can run 2nd, 3rd, 5th. He did win the Oaklawn. He barely got up in the Oaklawn, but I don't know. I think the type of race I think Proxy would need to run to win this race, I think is difficult to run at 1.25 miles at Saratoga, if that makes any sense.
I agree. And I also know for a fact this horse does not want to be inside. Now, there's a very long run to that first turn, Paul, as you well know. I'm sure Rosario has plenty of time to extricate Proxy away from the inside. I have to say, Paul, I think Stidham's done, even though I don't have this horse in my top 3, I'm totally fading this horse today, even though he could win. I think Stidham's done an amazing job with this horse. I've really never thought this horse is that good, which sounds disrespectful, but they have spotted this horse, Paul, so well. He's won over $2 million. And I've said before, I try to be humble on this show, but when we're right, we need to say it too. I've been very good with Proxy in this podcast. I picked him last time, although he was, odds on, forget that. I liked him. Let's look at Proxy. I liked him at Oaklawn, if you recall, and he won at 7-2. If you remember, Paul, I liked him in the Clark last November, and he won for me at 5-2. I hated him in the Stephen Foster for reasons. He had the rail, blah, blah, blah. We talked about it. I don't like him here. he's not really getting better. He's no superstar. He's a low price. He's got the rail. You might be right about Saratoga not being to his liking. It's like tighter turns. I'm very dubious of this horse, even though I know he can win. I don't like him today.
Well, there you go. So now, if we take him out, now I only have one horse to beat is Rattle and Roll. So I'm feeling
Right.
better. I'm feeling better that I could have a bright future in my wagering.
Oh, Bright Future. This is another horse I've talked about on this show a lot. Go ahead, Paul. What do you like about Bright Future? Ran huge last time.
Yeah, I just, again, you throw out the Brooklyn. It's a 1.5 mile race. It's kind of a, even though it's only a quarter mile more, it is a race you kind of have to be forward in, and this horse was just last all the way around the track. No idea what happened there, but this is certainly a horse that I think Pletcher likes. A $350,000 horse for Verpoli and Vinny Viola. I like him coming off that 100. He's had 4 works since that race at Saratoga. I just think with only 8 horses in a 1.25 miles, should be able to sit a trip and be tactical and, take the lead and hold off the closes.
He goes by Speed Bias, who's a pretty good horse, by the way, and Artorias, who I liked a lot in this race, but just didn't really fire as well as he should have. He's a big striding horse for St. Elias, Paul. The outside post is great for him. He's going to get a good trip, you would assume. I don't see a ton of early speed. I think he's probably just going to sit off the 2 would be my guess here, or just take the lead. I'll tell you what happened 2 back, Paul. He just wasn't sent. If you recall, I was on with you and Pete, and I loved this horse in the Brooklyn. And it was a horrible pick. It ended up being because he was eased. But Irad was like really passive with him. And I said, Paul, this horse wants to go to the lead. And I liked him last time, and Castellano did it. Can he get the distance? I think so. Is he good enough?
Curly.
It's curling.
Come on.
Is he good enough? Maybe. I defaulted to Rail and Roll. I'm not really proud of this selection, I have to be honest. He's just really good now. And he's been working at Saratoga. He's never run it. He's won at Saratoga once, and he had a lot of trouble in that race. He's working well. He's going to sit a trip. I have no desire to take this horse anything lower than like 2-1. But you know what? In a horizontal, he's just the most likely winner, Paul, to me. And so I'm not going to mess around. I do think Clapton is a bit interesting for Chad Summers, who's the new trainer. And they have aspirations. Get it right for this, Paul. They have aspirations to take this horse to Dubai next spring, because Chad Summers, of course, has some history there in Dubai with Mind Your Biscuits, and they really think highly of this horse. I don't know. Someone had to finish second in the Suburban, and it happened to be him against Charge It. I don't think he quite classes up. This is a tricky race. I also want to mention Tyson. And if Tyson wins, Paul, it's going to be winner, winner, chicken dinner. Get the reference?
Oh, I was thinking.
Oh, that too. A little Tyson chicken? No, forget it. Okay, anyway. I've seen this horse run too, and Josie Carroll's got 2 in here, Paul. This is a talented horse. I have no idea about the dirt. No. But he's got breeding for it, and this is a talented horse. This is a very tricky Jockey Club Gold Cup, and I'm hoping to be able to spread, because I don't really love anyone in here, to be honest. That's my final opinion.
Yeah, it's just a question of in this, how much do you spread,
right?
With a 8-horse field.
I will say this, Paul. I'm going to make a bold prediction. Are you ready? Even though that the Jockey Club Gold Cup is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup, the winner of today's race 11 at Saratoga will not win the Breeders' Cup Classic. How about that for bold prediction? It's not exactly your stellar field.
That's reasonable.
Yeah. Let's go to last race, Paul. And what we got? Well, before we do that, Felice Kamanouche. What's up, Felice? Thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it. Charles B said Bright Future is the wise guy horse. You might be right, Charles. I don't think we're getting 6-1. I'm thinking more like 4-1 on that horse. And also, Main Focus brought this up. Bright Future has been the workmate for Forte all along, Paul. So they've literally, the namesake is valid. Pletcher's always thought that Bright Future has exactly that. So he's been the workmate of Forte. All right, last race. Oof. Here, here we go. This race is maiden 40 New York breds. As usual, it's a complete cluster unless you think the Clement horse is the bee's knees. Paul, who do you have in the last race today at Saratoga? Excuse me.
Oh boy, I'll tell you. I'm going to go with 794
794. Okay.
with as little confidence as you can have.
There you go.
This is one
Wow,
of those
excuse me.
classic New York bred last race. Not so much New York bred, but maiden claiming last races that, even if you are 4 for 4, you're on pins and needles unless you
Oh,
have all.
you are absolutely big time holding your breath for sure, because
Oh,
the 4 horse is an interesting discussion. I wish we could take 20 minutes to talk about it, but let me bring up the PPs. Actually, let me bring up the Equibase, excuse me. Let's do that first. You see our picks on the bottom of the screen. Maiden 40, mile 16th on the turf. We have scratches, Paul, please?
we have just the AEs and the MTOs. So
Oh, yeah, they're on the screen. Great. So everyone's in the main body of the field. 12 horse field. Moorline favorite is Kamcha, the number 4. Clement and Irad. You don't see Irad on too many Clements. 2-1. Forget that 2-1. This horse is going to be 7-5.
right.
I would say, Paul. You have this horse third. I have this horse second. You're going Stone of Destiny, who I have in the mix, but hell, I've got like 10 horses in the mix here. For David Donk and Trevor McCarthy, what does he like about the 7, Paul, in the closeout race?
Well, the turf numbers are competitive. Believe it or not, 57 looks like a competitive number in
Yep.
this race. Clearly, she's a turf horse, so you can throw out the last race. I think Trevor will be aggressive. Trevor won one yesterday. He's Trevor chasing Katie is another subplot of this meet. I think he's 2 behind her now, if I'm not
Ooh.
mistaken.
Bragging rights in the household there.
Yeah, I think that he's got a chance to just be very forward with this horse. And I mean, clearly, on paper, the 4 looks very good. Orange Freeze came back to win out of that race.
Yes.
I believe up here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Um,
I'll
so,
show the Orange Freeze
but
PPs there, Paul.
again, the curse of my wagering existence is being stuck on only the favorite in the last leg of a multi, and this would now Get Stormy was a terrific turf horse. Obviously, this is a turf horse. I don't know Greg Hawkins. It's a homebred. I don't know what prompted the lengthy layoff. Obviously, they're waiting for a spot up here. It's Clement. Clement's having his usual terrific meet. So I have nothing against the 4. I'm just looking for a price. I think the 7's a price. I threw the 9 in the mix. The 9 will be over bet because it's Jenna and Castellano, but I think the 9 is better. I won't say much better, but better on turf than dirt. It ran somewhat competitive races on turf, but this is a dartboard race, Howard.
Yeah, Jayla has a right to improve. Listen, the 4 horse is, like I said, the horse to beat. And she did face Orange Freeze, who would destroy this field, to be very honest with you. But here's my thing, Paul, and I want to be very clear again. We have a ton of people watching again this morning. Thank you so much for watching Saratoga today as we're almost finished going through late pick 5. Please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're going to have Saratoga Today shows Sunday and Monday for closing day, Labor Day, same time, same bat station, 10:30 Eastern. Paul, I do not have intel on Kamcha. I want to make that clear. But where's this horse been? They thought so highly of this horse that they only put her in for 40. She got a perfect trip. Now, she did run pretty well, but she got an absolute dream trip in her debut. Now she's off for 2 months. This whole thing, yeah, it stinks. So get the fly swatter out, because even though this horse is likely, like, I hate this horse on the win end as a bet. I mean, I would never put a win bet on this horse. I thought Dream Road is a little bit interesting, sort of like your 7, Paul. Will show speed, has only 1 race on turf and ran a 62, which is very competitive number. Puts blinkers on. Ruben Silvera, rides mainly at parks, but he's a decent jockey. He doesn't ride at Saratoga much, so the fact that he's here, I don't know. I don't love this horse at all, but you might want someone that it goes to the lead, Paul, and I'm thinking with blinkers on, maybe Dream Road will go to the lead. I have a lot of other horses that I'm going to use. Like, I'm going to use as many as possible because, like you said, it's a dartboard race, Paul. And this is the kind of race where if you're alive to a lot of horses and you can get like a 15 to 20 to 1, your pick 5 can absolutely explode. So it's weird. The 4 is the best horse, and I'm using her horizontally, but vertically, I would want no part of the 4 on the win end at all, Paul. If that makes sense to everyone. Hope it should.
100% to quote our good friend Kyle. That's why I went looking elsewhere for a top pick and landed on the 7. Similar profile to the 3. Maybe my 7 sits off the 3. Ruben Silvera is very good at parks. He frankly has struggled up here, which doesn't make him a bad jockey. It's the most competitive jockey colony in the world. So, yeah. I'm going to hope Trevor can get closer to Katie, and of course we have the Linda Rice Chad Brown subplot. And Howard, when Linda got off to the start that she did, you heard a lot of, well, this is a great start, but certainly she's not going to be able to sustain that for the meet. Well, folks, we're in day 38, and she's 1 win behind Chad Brown, and I get it. There've been 60-something races off the turf, which does affect Chad more than her. However, yes, Chad's also got about 50 more starts than her, 40-something more starts than her. So hard to overstate what a phenomenal meet she's had, and it's going to be fun watching that. Since the jockeys race has been over after the first week, it's going to be fun watching the trainer race this weekend.
For sure. And out of respect to the great Andy Byer, who is on Talking Horses right now, they're starting a little bit earlier, Paul, because the race start half an hour early. We're gonna get off the air, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put this up on YouTube and make sure everything's good for the podcast. And I'm gonna go to Talking Horses and watch Andy Byer with Andy Serling, because I love both those guys. And Andy Byer, by the way, last year was 9 out of 12 winners that he picked on the Talking Horses show on Naira. So I'm curious to see who they're going with the late pick 5. Paul, really appreciate you jumping in here last second. I think, are you going to be on tomorrow or Monday? On Monday. Paul's going to be on with me closing day. And I believe Patrick Kunzel, if I recall, to close out our Saratoga Today shows. We wish everyone a ton of success and luck today all over the country. You got Del Mar and the Pacific Classic. You know my love for Churchtown at Kentucky Downs today, one of my plays of the entire summer. And then, of course, all the horses we've touted here on Saratoga Day for the late pick 5. For my co-host, Paul Halloran, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz. It's been Saratoga Today for Saturday, September 2nd. Crush your bets at Saratoga. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.